Howdy folks, and welcome to Mingles with Jingles, starting as usual with Wanker of the Week. This is DutchBet in the Type 59, who has played an absolute blinder of a defensive game here in Assault mode on Corellia. In fact, I may even show you this full game in its entirety at some point in the future. For now, all you need to know, he's about to do over 3,000 damage in total to the enemy, which, funnily enough, is around about 3,000 more damage than the driver of that T-34 over there on the left. And like my grandpappy used to tell me before he left this shitty world, there's always going to be some useless turd in a T-34 whose only way of coming to terms with his own incompetence is to lash out at anybody who's better than him. And when you're as bad as that means pretty much everybody had better watch out. The second entry in Wanker of the Week this week comes courtesy of Lewis Moggs 452 in the Carnarvon, but he's not the subject. The subject is this idiot in the FCM50T who will not stop spamming the map to the position of the enemy ELC. Yes, we know he's there. Our own ELC is going over there to deal with him. We are aware of it. Thank you. Please shut up. Well, it turns out you don't tell this guy to shut up and get away with it, because Lewis appears to have severely rustled this guy's jimmies. You know what's coming. I don't even know why I bother trying to make this sound surprising. Yeah, he did just drive out in front of all of those enemy guns in order to shoot and ram Lewis's tank. And Lewis isn't retaliating, and there he goes, he turns blue. Now, you'd think that would be enough of a warning, but no. He does it again. And then suddenly, he just stops. At the time, Lewis thought this guy had just gone AFK and rage quit. But what's actually happened here is the automated anti-TK system has struck, and his account has now been banned from the game. And I do so love it when arseholes like that get what's coming to them. Picking this week's winner for Wanker of the Week was actually pretty damn easy. This is Alessa 221 in her Mark IV Matilda. They are being capped, but there's only one enemy tank in the cap. They've got a B1 going back to try to reset the cap. If all three, the AMX-38, the T-82 and Alessa's Matilda, get into the cap circle, they can win this game. But they just had to start shooting each other, don't they? I swear you could not make this shit up. Alessa even tries to shield the idiot in the AMX-38, who started it, from the fire of the T-82. She uses her own tank to try to stop these two from shooting each other, and is taking hits from the T-82, trying to protect the idiot in the AMX-38 from the other idiot in the T-82. But she's wasting her time. There is no known cure for stupid. These guys were determined to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. And that, folks, is why that idiot in the AMX-38 and the retard in the T-82 are this week's joint winners of Wanker of the Week. So, on with the regular Mingles with Jingles. And I do realise that over the last couple of episodes of Mingles with Jingles I've been turning not actually answering any of your questions into something of an art form. So I'm going to make it up to you this week, and it's going to be a question answering bonanza of jingly goodness. Starting off with Left of Deuces. I've probably mispronounced the name, I do apologise in advance. He wants to know, Jingles, given that you want to see premium ammo removed from World of Tanks, how on earth do you expect to be effective in tanks like the Panzer IIJ and the Comet? And you know what, that is actually a very, very good question, and it's probably not the first time I've been asked. So I'll have a stab at answering it. Now, I have said many times in the past that I think World of Tanks would be a better game if there was no premium ammunition in it, and that premium ammunition should be removed from the game. I have said this in the past, and I'm wrong. Yeah, you didn't see that one coming, did you? What I should have said is that World of Tanks would have been a better game if it had been designed from the start to not have premium ammunition in it. Unfortunately, that is not the case. And so premium ammunition is here to stay, and it's here to stay for a number of very good reasons. First and foremost, Wargaming have got to make money somehow. World of Tanks is a free-to-play game, so that means there are only a limited number of ways that they can actually make this game commercially viable and earn a living out of it. Now, There's the gift shop, where you can buy certain premium tanks, you can buy gift bundles, this, that, and the other, and so on and so on. But they don't make the majority of their money from the gift shop. The lion's share of Wargaming's income is, and always has been, from the sale of gold. Gold buys all sorts of things. It buys certain premium tanks, it buys premium ammunition and consumables, and it buys premium account time. The gift shop is actually a relatively new addition to the game. The sale of gold has always been Wargaming's biggest moneymaker. Now, while it's true that you no longer specifically need gold to buy premium ammunition or premium consumables, and that's why we call them premium ammo and consumables these days instead of gold ammo and consumables, for quite some time now you have been able to buy these things with credits earned in-game. But when World of Tanks' economic model was being developed, you could only get premium consumables with gold. And so the game was designed from the ground up, based around that, to make it more attractive, without being compulsory, for you to spend some of the gold that you bought from Wargaming on things like gold ammunition, gold consumables. It was built into the game's design from the ground up. And so you do get a lot of tanks that, not all of them, not by any stretch of the imagination, but there are a fair old number of tanks in the game that are pretty good in almost every respect, other than the lackluster penetration of their main gun when using standard ammunition. And, we're talking about things like the Panzer IIJ, the Comet, the T-54, there's any number of different tanks that would fall into this category. And if, against all the odds, they did suddenly decide to, okay, we're just removing premium ammo from the game altogether, they would have to start rebalancing all of the existing tanks that have poor penetration on their guns to take this into account, because the game was designed with premium ammunition as an option. And I've got absolutely no doubt whatsoever that there are certain tanks, like the Comet, probably a very, very good example, that when they're designing the specifications of the tank, that they are thinking, this tank is going to be a gold ammunition seller. The FV215B183, another perfect example. That tank it's not bad without HESH ammunition, but it's absolutely godlike with HESH ammunition. And why would you drive an FV215B183 tank destroyer without a supply of HESH ammo? But at the same time, you do have to give Wargaming some credit. They've been doing this for a long time now, and they really are not, despite what the forum trolls would have you believe. They are not stupid. Using the old Death Star, the FV215B183 as an example, and the gloriously overpowered, or so people would have you believe, HESH, high explosive squash head premium ammunition for that thing. This is a machine that can one-shot kill any tier 9 tank in the game, and a lot of the tier 10 tanks. And yet, there are still many circumstances where firing HESH ammunition exclusively with that tank is a very, very bad idea. The armor-piercing ammunition on that tank comes in very, very useful a lot of the time, and you get the armor-piercing ammunition just for standard credits. That's the cheap ammunition on that tank. Now, at this point I was going to say that there isn't a single circumstance where just using gold ammunition is the best way to go on any tank in the game, and then I realised Panzer IIJ, T-18 tank destroyer, and yeah, okay, you got me. But these are very, very low tier vehicles, and the focus of the balance in World of Tanks has never been below tier 5. Of course, having said that, that's going to change as well. Wargaming are looking at rebalancing the lower tier vehicles, the seal clubbing machines like the T-18 tank destroyer with high explosive anti-tank ammo. So, their day will come soon too, and they are going to be looking at balancing the lower tiers to the same degree that they balance the higher tiers. But getting back to a machine like the Death Star, the FV215B183 is a perfect example. That thing with premium HESH ammunition is absolutely lethal. It can one-shot kill any tier 9 or below tank in the game. And it can one-shot kill a lot of the tier 10s as well. And yet, just running an exclusive premium ammunition loadout on the FV215B183 is not a good idea. There are lots and lots of occasions where you will want to have standard, credit-purchased, armor-piercing ammunition on that machine instead of just firing Hesh. And this example applies to most of the high-tier vehicles in the game that typically come equipped with a lot of premium ammunition. The T-54 and its high explosive anti-tank ammo, for example, is absolutely fantastic for derping a skill shot right through the front of the turret of an E100 or a Mouse, for example. But if you're shooting at the side, where there's all that spaced armour and tracks, you absolutely definitely don't want to be firing heat ammo. And that's very, very clever design on behalf of wargaming, because it serves two purposes. First and foremost, it removes the accusation that all you have to do to win at World of Tanks is flash the cash and spend money on a lot of premium ammunition. Secondly, and probably more importantly, it separates the wallet warriors from the good players, the kind of players that know there's a time and place for premium ammunition in World of Tanks, and it isn't every time you point the barrel of your gun at an enemy tank. A lesson which I am the first to admit I have conspicuously failed to learn in my Comet, but which I am at least trying to come to grips with in my E100, for example. All of which brings us back to the Comet and the argument that premium ammunition is nothing but a skill substitute, and while I do have to hold my hand up and say I do use premium ammunition on my Comet pretty much as a skill substitute, there are plenty of players out there who never touch the stuff and do very, very well in their Comet. How is this possible, Jingle? Well, they drive it like a medium tank, because, you know, it's a medium tank. And it's probably fair to say that a lot of the frustration over the use of premium ammunition comes from, for example, the Comet. Facing off against dug-in enemy heavy tanks that are 300 meters away with their front angled and facing towards the Comet, and the Comet just loads the skill and penetrates the front of the tank with every shot anyway, while being hull down, perhaps shooting over the top of a ridge, and only exposing his gun mantlet for the enemy heavy tanks to return fire. And I completely understand why this must be really frustrating for heavy tank drivers. But there is a counter-argument, and it's a pretty good one. And it's to do with the whole concept of premium ammunition being a skill substitute. Sometimes it absolutely definitely is a skill substitute, but it's not necessarily a substitute for the skill of the person driving the Comet. Sometimes it's a skill substitute for the utter incompetence of the rest of your team. And this is a very, very important point. A lot of very, very good World of Tanks players will carry premium ammunition, particularly in medium tanks, because they know most of the time they're going to have to do some serious carrying when they play, because the guys in the heavy tanks in their team are not going to be up to scratch. And I'm just using the Comet as an example because it is a very, very good example. It's a tier 7 medium tank. It's a very manoeuvrable tank. It's a good medium tank, but the penetration of the main 76mm gun is distinctly below average, unless you're using premium ammo. It's perfectly adequate for getting through the sides and rear and hitting the weak spots of any kind of tank that it's going to face. But from the front, and we're talking very specific circumstances here, if you're engaging heavily armoured targets at long range, the gun just is not good enough. And this is why a lot of very, very good players will argue against the removal of premium ammunition from the game, because a tank like the Comet, in the hands of a very good player with a limited supply of premium ammunition used in the right place at the right time, can carry games when your team is utterly hopeless. There is nothing more frustrating for a very good player, and I don't count myself amongst them, but there is nothing more frustrating for a very good player to be in a tank that cannot carry a match when he is forced into the position where he has to carry the match. If you go to the YouTube channels of all the best World of Tanks players and you look specifically for those games where they carry utter donkey teams against all the odds, the chances are they have had to use premium ammunition at some point during the course of that match, or they just wouldn't have been able to do it. The odds were stacked too highly against them. And you probably know the kind of players I'm talking about. I'm certainly not one of them. So, you know, it's easy, certainly in my position, to just stand up on my soapbox and say, yeah, premium ammo is bad, it shouldn't be in the game. But it's not as simple as that. Premium ammo is in the game, and it has been designed into the game from the ground up. And there are all kinds of reasons why you should have premium ammunition in World of Tanks. One argument is that it's historically accurate, and it's also a very, very good argument. The British had their HESH ammo and their armor-piercing discarding SABO, their APDS ammo. The Americans had their high-velocity armor-piercing ammo. Of course, there's the high-explosive anti-tank ammo. This ammunition existed. You know, it's real ammunition. The M26 Pershings that saw service in World War II had a limited supply of high-velocity armor-piercing ammunition. But the key word here is limited supply. Actually, that's two words. Okay, the key words here are limited supply. The armor penetrator in the HVAP round was made out of solid tungsten. This stuff was as rare as rocking horse shit. The supply and use of it was tightly controlled by the War Office, because it was vital for the construction of machine tools that were vital to the war effort, and they just didn't have enough of it to equip every tank in the European theatre of operation with 50 rounds of HVAP ammo. The stuff was so tightly controlled that units that did have access to the ammunition had it rationed so tightly that they could only afford to give out one shot per tank every 30 days. You know, there was just not enough of this stuff to go around. And perhaps that's the way ahead. Much in the same way that you see historical battles being regulated in World of Tanks. Historical Battles, the new game mode that was introduced in patch 9.0. You might think to yourself, oh, Battle of the Bulge, great, I'll take my Hellcat in. 90mm gun, make short work of those Tigers. Sorry. Hellcat used the 76mm in combat in World War II. 90mm gun, available on the M36 Jackson, not the M18 Hellcat. And they take a similar approach not just to the gun that you can use in the tanks in the historical battles, but the engines, the radios, and the ammunition loadout as well. And perhaps that's a more realistic way of addressing the problem, if you even agree that there is a problem with premium ammunition in the first place. Not everybody does. And, you know, even the people who are most violently against the use of premium ammunition in World of Tanks have got to admit that it is not as big a problem as everybody makes it out to be. Well, that's a fairly bold claim, Jingles. How can you say that? Well, hands up everybody who has been accused of being a gold ammo noob while playing World of Tanks and not using premium ammunition. Yeah, I thought so. That's everybody. We've all been accused of using gold ammo when we have quite definitely not been using gold ammo. So we can categorically, with 100% certainty, state that the problem is not as big as it is in certain people's minds. And I don't honestly think the problem is that people use it, because used in the right time and in the right place, it can carry a game, when a game needs to be carried. I think the problem is that people use it and don't use anything else. It's people who spam gold ammunition when they clearly don't need to, that pisses people off. If, for example, the maximum amount of premium ammunition that you could carry into battle on a tank was limited to a certain percentage of the maximum amount of overall ammunition that tank could carry, and we'd have to argue all day about what percentage that could be, but make it somewhat historically accurate, for example, then, you know, the kind of people that just load the gold first and just shoot it at everything would suffer. But the people who carefully controlled what they fired at who and when would still profit from it. You'd still be able to carry games that needed carrying when your donkey team collapses all around you. But those guys that just spam the shit like there's no tomorrow would find their back right up against the wall when they're in their tier 7 medium, their heavy tanks have proven to be complete and utter donkeys and have all failed utterly, and now you have to kill an E75. But you've wasted all your premium ammunition shooting at the back end of a Panther right at the start of the game. Ha ha, sucks to be you, you deserve to lose. Those who know how to control their fire, however, would still have the premium ammo available when they were forced into the position of doing the job that their team's heavy tanks had failed to do, and would have a fighting chance against the front of, for example, an E75 in a game like that. That sounds like a reasonable compromise to me, And a compromise is the best you can hope for, because like it or not, gold ammo is here to stay. It isn't going anywhere. It's part of the game. It's going to stay part of the game. And the best you can possibly hope for, even if you're the most rabid opponent of gold ammo being in World Attacks, is that the use of gold ammo gets regulated somewhat. And the groundwork is already there. You know, the systems are in place. It is regulated in historical battles. Will that day ever come when you have the same restrictions on ammunition in regular games and World Attacks as you do in historical battles? Yeah, I doubt it. If we're going to be completely realistic, I sincerely doubt it. But then again, I don't know. I mean, I say that now, but if you'd asked me a year ago whether I thought you'd ever be able to buy premium ammunition for credits, I would have said, you've got to be joking. And hey, you can do that now. But realistically, I think this is the best you could possibly hope for. I honestly don't think gold ammo is ever going to go away. And the best you could hope for is that its use gets regulated somehow. So, yeah, Left of Deuces. Again, I've probably mispronounced your name. Thanks very much for asking that question. A lot of the conclusions that I came to during the course of the last almost 20 minutes, I've done it again, haven't I? Taken forever to answer one question. Forcing me to answer the question has actually made me think a lot more about the implications. So, my sincere thanks for posing the question in the first place. Right, I better get on with this. Next question comes from Mihai Adrian, and he wants to know, Jingles, what do you think you've done for the good of humanity so far? Wow. Talk about putting me on the spot. I mean, I'm just a YouTuber. It's not like I work for the International Red Cross or anything. Well, okay. Fair enough. Wow. Okay, let's see. I do like to think that I might have stimulated an interest in history amongst the people who watch my YouTube channel. And that would be great. But it's not really something done for the good of humanity. I suppose, you know, years after I'm gone, if a bunch of people are sitting around talking about when they were growing up, what they watched on YouTube, and somebody says, oh, do you remember the mighty Jingles? And if at least one person in the world answers that question by saying, yeah, I remember him. I remember watching some of his videos, and he taught me the importance of always questioning everything that I'm told. If at least one person in the world is able to say that as a result of listening to me waffle on for endless hours on YouTube, they have learned the importance of finding out for themselves what the truth of the matter is, rather than just believing the first thing they hear because their parents told them, or because their teacher told them, or because their priest told them, or because they saw it on the news, but instead of just believing everything they're told, rather investigating everything that they're told and making their own damn mind up. If at least one person can say that was because of me, then my time on this planet has not been a complete waste. Wow, that one was a bit profound. I am very, very sorry. Don't worry, it won't happen again. We will soon be arriving at Dick Joke Island. Normal service will be resumed. And this next question is the perfect one to lighten the mood, although technically I'm not sure it qualifies as a question, but I'm going to repeat it anyway because it's so funny. As you can probably imagine, and you probably don't have to imagine because I tell you about it so often, I get a lot of mail. And this is just one example of the kind of drivel, of the kind of utter rubbish that I have to wade through on a daily basis to find the sort of questions that appear in Mingles with Jingles. Oh, hang on a minute. I'd better put the old explicit content warning up, because there's a lot of foul language in this one. Okay, there we go. You've been warned. You ready? Here it comes. This message was simply entitled, Fuck You. I saw this one pop up in my inbox and I thought, I've got to read this one. This one's going to be interesting, and it didn't fail to deliver. And the message reads like this, and the spelling is all his. Fuck you. Fuck you, Jingle. You can play only test server. Come on, go to the NA West server. I have 13 tier 10 waiting to shoot your ass. Bring it on, bitch. My nickname is Aussie Force. So that's nice. And note that he very helpfully included not only his real name, which appears to be Vietnamese, I'm not entirely sure, but he also included his North American server World of Tanks nickname. How nice of him. Dear Mr. Tien Tru, or Aussie Force, whichever name you are more comfortable with. Thank you very, very much for your most gracious invitation for me to come to the NA Sever and get my ass shot by all of your tier 10 tanks. I have to admit, the idea of getting my ass pumped by some spotty 12-year-old American nerd school kid is not without its attractions. However, in the spirit of self-sacrifice and in the interests of international transatlantic cooperation, I am in fact going to decline your most gracious invitation and instead suggest that perhaps if you spent less time trying to look like a hard man on the internet and slightly more paying attention in school, particularly in English class, I have no doubt that you will find life significantly less frustrating and more literate than it currently appears to be. I do realise that I have used several very big words in the course of this reply, but it's okay if you need to find a dictionary to look them up. YouTube has a pause function. If, of course, you don't actually know what a dictionary is, well, that's part of the problem, isn't it? Once again, I refer you to the tender mercies of your English teacher. Seriously, she's not your enemy. Also, you know, you might want to think twice before you throw down on somebody who's played half the number of games you have, has twice as many mastery badges, 50% more average XP per battle, and 10% more average damage per battle. I'm just saying. And, oh, look at the time. It's now 6 o'clock in the morning where I am, and I've got to get this thing rendered and uploaded, so that quite literally is all we have time for in Mingles with Jingles this week. And I need to get some kind of sleep before tonight's live stream in World of Tanks with circumflexes. So, on that bombshell, that's it for this week's Mingles with Jingles. As always, folks, have fun playing whatever the hell you're playing, and I will catch you next time. Take care out there.